Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Today we're talking about iceberg movers. Yeah. No, seriously, iceberg movers. I did not think that this was a job, but it is. So we're going to talk about it today in our session of What's That Job? Now, iceberg movers. It's funny because you never really thought about it. I think Norway and Canada are actually the biggest ones that do the iceberg movers right now. So, iceberg moving actually started after the Titanic disaster in 1911. Guess why? So, what did they do? Started was they founded the International Ice Patrol. And what they did after this was they hired specialists to tow ice to tow them away from ships and oil rigs. And this has saved, as you can imagine, millions and millions of dollars. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than what it is because each iceberg is different. No two icebergs are alike. And usually you can see the top side of the iceberg, of course, but you can't see the bottom, and the bottom is the dangerous part. I actually used icebergs when I did my master's. I did an iceberg analogy, which is really typically used with deep dark web, or the dark web, however you want to call it. We usually use this analogy that what you see above the water is the internet, what you access, what each of us accesses, and then what's down below, which is a big chunk of the ice, is the deep dark web. And that's actually the analogy that we use a lot. I did that analogy when I did my thesis. My thesis was on how people took security in terms of what they knew about the internet, if they were aware of the deep dark web, and etc., etc. One of the parts of my master's was doing a survey. I had a small sample pool of 100 people, but actually my husband was in the reserves at that point, and I gave him a bunch of my surveys, and he took them to his unit, and so I had pretty much a decent of 50 participants that were civilian and 50 that were military. And guess what? 100% of them didn't trust the government with their information. Shocker. But either way, that's just an analogy, side note. So coming back to icebergs, actually they pay around $25 an hour, which will come an annual salary of $48,000 a year, but it can go up to $75,000 depending on your experience and all that. And I imagine it goes up the longer and the more experience you have and all that. But in my opinion, severely underpaid for what they do and the weather conditions that they enjoy. But I digress. So how do they do this? Well, they use a towboat, of course, and they drill an anchor into the iceberg, and they use a combination of ropes and nets to just gently tow the iceberg and move it to a safer designated area. Now, that doesn't involve that they just move it and ditch it. No, they monitor it. They monitor it for a while to make sure that it doesn't drift into another unsafe place, and they don't need to move it again. Now, iceberg moving is an extremely slow process. Like, you have to imagine the size of the iceberg that they're trying to move. Just imagine that you're trying to tow the Empire State Building across the nation on a pickup truck. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what they're trying to do. And so it is a very, very complex job. It involves a lot of planning and a lot of teamwork. This is a teamwork effort, and actually iceberg moving involves various specialities. You must have navigation experience. You must have knowledge of ice physics and some ocean currents, and also extreme weather condition, tugboat operation skills. Usually the team is usually comprised of marine tugboat operators, ocean engineers, Arctic logistics specialists, however you want to call them, and ice management. And yes, these professions do exist. Usually the people that do this, they worked in the Coast Guard, all there were sea voyagers that have experience in navigating through ice. That's one of the big things. You have to have experience navigating through ice. It's not just a cut and dry thing. And it is an important job. It is a very important job, monitoring of ice. I don't know if you've seen the videos of people touring and going to the glaciers and seeing, and basically almost having ice break off on them. And with oil rigs and cargo vessels going through there, they have to be taken into account so that we don't have more disasters. And also limit the environmental impact of a potential disaster in that area. Now, this job involves engineering, environmental science, and pure adrenaline. Because could you imagine, I just keep picturing the Mickey little cartoon tugboat thing pulling an iceberg. Like that thing. Remember, there are no brakes. It's just gently, it's just so unbelievable. This profession is so unbelievable. Everything they do. And they're so underpaid. I did find a couple of videos that were really helpful in my information, but they said, oh, this job pays up to like $25 an hour. You can win this, and it's an awesome job. And I'm like, no, like, are you kidding me? That's so underpaid for what they're actually doing. The amount of work that goes into it for that, wow. These people are in charge of preventing multi-million-dollar disasters, protect wildlife inhabitants, even help collect climate data science, and it involves so many aspects for that. It's really a shame that these jobs are not valued as much as they should. They really, really should be valued. Coming around now with the iceberg moving, there are a couple of proposals that are exploring the idea of moving icebergs to places that actually need water. Icebergs and glaciers. I went to Canada when I was in the 7th grade, and we went to a glacier and we drank water from right there from the glacier. It was the best water ever. It was so fresh. And they do sell that water. Like, they collect it downstream and they sell it. It's fresh water, it's clean water. It's the freshest water you can get, actually. And there is this idea of moving the icebergs. Now, of course, this is non-feasible right now because could you imagine? It will cost up to like $10 million to move an ice 2,600 miles away. And it's incredible, the logistics of it that you would need and the planning that you will need. Because imagine trying to push sofa across America and at the same time the sofa is caught on fire and it's melting and you're trying to get it from point A to point B without it melting. Like, wow, that's one big idea. And another analogy that I found was trying to imagine you moving an ice cube from Antarctica to either Africa and not having the ice cube melt. Yeah, that's about it. So the idea is to move the ice to regions that don't have water. If you hear that, my daughter woke up. And I need to finish up. To move the icebergs to regions that don't have water, because it is forecast that in a couple of years there will be some areas that will no longer have access to fresh water. And while the logistics of it is ridiculous, I really do hope they figure out a way to actually do it. One of the methods that was explored and mentioned that they could try to do was maybe collect the water as they move the ice. It'll start melting, so why not collect the water as it starts melting while taking the iceberg to its destination? It is a proposed idea. It's not really realistic right now because of the complexities and logistics involved to do it. If you want to be an iceberg mover, what do you need? Well, you need to get maritime training, of course, and all tugboat experience, licenses, all that. Specialized in ice regions, like I said, Norway and Canada are big ones. And you need to gain experience. That's basically it. You just move up. All my resources that I use for this video will be linked down below, and also a couple of job boards that I actually found for all this, in case you are someone that has the experience needed for all this and you didn't know that this existed, and you're gonna buy, I guess. That's my cue. Gotta go. I hope you found this video interesting. I hope you'll consider subscribing, liking. It really helps my channel out. Thank you for everybody who has already subscribed and stayed to the end. It means the world to me. So yeah, on to the next one. See you guys. Bye.